Tennessee played Florida this past weekend. Big rivalry, I would say. This game went to overtime as well, so the SEC schedule just continued to deliver bangers on bangers, right? Left this game for Tennessee, quality win. It's always about where should we focus going forward. Every SEC team has some areas to focus on. So for Tennessee, it's, where should Tennessee's focus be after this OT win versus Florida?
Yeah. And I said it once, I said it twice, I'll say it again. A win is a win. You play to win the football game. You don't care about what you maybe were supposed to do in this game. I would say Tennessee they leave this game happy that they won, but there's a lot of room for improvement. Before I get into all that improvement, I do want to give Dylan Sampson his flowers for basically carrying the offensive side of the ball for Tennessee pretty much this whole season. Without him, I don't know where this team would be. But 3 touchdowns in the game, 112 yards. He put the game on ice and finished it there in overtime. And for them, the offense is really the focus. The defense is great. They just cannot pass the ball right now.
Yeah.
The last 3 games, Nico has 5 fumbles and interception, only 1 touchdown. That's horrible. I mean, you've asked so much of your defense to be able to win games with that stat line because you're not moving the ball efficiently, 6.8 yards per attempt, not finding his guys downfield. What we saw at the beginning of the season from an offensive side, we thought there was going to be something there, and it's lifeless, no confidence. He's eyeing guys down. He looks scared out there. I don't mean to hate on the guy too much, but
no,
I mean, damn, if they could fix that, they'd be great.
Right. And you saw it in that game, right? Like going 4 for 15 on third down, like just could not advance the ball. You got to break 200 in the air for Nico, and it's just you watch that NC State game. You watched them play against some of these other smaller G5 teams, and you thought that this was the ceiling. It felt like we talked about it a little bit earlier in another segment, talking about the Ole Miss and their ceiling. It feels like Tennessee has reached this ceiling because of their offense, but their ceiling feels higher because they're 5-1 and they're still able to win because of this defense. But the main problem is this offense and where they should go from here. It's so to me, I think you gotta maybe shrink the playbook even more for this. Now we'll take the posture of young sophomore quarterback, not potential upstart or uprising young gun in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean the confidence is left the building. He's early on, you said shrink the playbook, and a couple weeks ago, I think that when we left the Oklahoma game, I think my initial thought was you got to give the guy more chances to launch the thing.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some way to do that there. I mentioned it with Graham Mertz, who, RIP, injured out for the season. Hate to see that for him, but they gave him opportunities to pass the ball in conservative ways, and that helped. Tennessee right now almost seems too conservative in the way that they're moving the ball offensively from a passing standpoint, that they're not getting anywhere. They had 12 3 and outs in their last 3 games and plenty more that were just only, a few plays longer, 4 or 5 plays. So they're not moving the ball effectively. I think you just need to figure out ways to get him to throw the ball into space. And it's so much easier said than done.
Yep.
But right now the confidence is dwindling. He's seeing ghosts. He's seeing ghosts out there, and it's not hitting his guys. So for them, you need to find a way to get sustained drives going, and not just on the ground. Because if they were throwing well, when they're throwing well early in the season, Dylan Sampson was completely unstoppable because they're having to look at the deep ball. They're having to look at those passes that he was nailing across the middle when we were singing his praises on those 15-yard balls.
Mm-hmm. And I think, when we're singing his praises in some of those games against teams that maybe weren't as impressive, I think what Tennessee fans, to me, there's a little more concern this week because although Florida is trending upwards, this defense is not super strong enough to me to be able to stop a guy like Nico like this, right? Against Arkansas, I'll give you that. Against really Oklahoma, I'll allow that type of performance. The Florida game, to me, with this offensive performance is concerning in the air, given where Tennessee thinks they want to be going forward. And they kind of find themselves, I mean, the rankings are reflective, the third most impressive or fourth most impressive one-loss team that's sitting there in the SEC. I think that's fairly accurate.
Yeah, it is. And this isn't to sound harsh or strict because I'm gonna say it about Alabama too. And they're both in a similar boat where they're in this survive mode on one side of the ball. Alabama defense seems to be in this survive mode, and it seems like that's what Tennessee's offense is starting to look like, survive. And if it weren't for some gifts from Florida and some poor Billy Napier, another bad Billy Napier game where he just couldn't finish offensively, they would have lost this game. Like Florida could have been up 17 points at half. And it just didn't work out. So they were surviving. And now these two teams will play next week. But they have Kentucky, they have Georgia, they have Vanderbilt. I'm not counting out Mississippi State, to be honest. So the offense does need to find some sort of rhythm and some pizzazz, some confidence, like, because that's what I think is lacking.
Yeah, absolutely. And you name some of those upcoming games. I think, from an offensive impressiveness perspective, the Georgia game and the Kentucky game are the opportunities, in addition to the Alabama game, to show us that this offense can get back to the level that it was, to get to even higher heights. Like I said, I still feel like there's a bigger ceiling for this offense. Maybe you get Dante Thornton more involved in some of these deeper passes, right? You saw him have that big 42-yard pass against Arkansas in a loss, but still getting him more involved, getting him in some of those 20-yard plus passes. Maybe like I'll regress or flip back from what I said earlier, but like take some more shots earlier in the game. Get him more warmed up. We have seen a little bit of improvement, I would say, just from Nico's fumbling side, but just not as much when it comes from interception somewhere. We're seeing on the other side.
Yeah. You guys got to clean it up. I mean, and again, it's not hating on Tennessee. We've said it about a lot of teams here. I don't think there's a team in the SEC that I don't see some sort of shining light for or some sort of positive to take from it. Mississippi State, it's harder to see it, but they performed well. But we talked about Georgia, where it's like, if they can get things to click, they'll do well. Tennessee is another team that I think is right there, where if they can improve upon that, which I don't have the answer, it's some sort of quarterback improvement here. If they can do that, then they're a dangerous team. But they could definitely beat Alabama next week at home.
Yeah.
They could definitely beat Vanderbilt. They could definitely beat Georgia. I don't think that any team right now in college football looks unbeatable, aside from maybe Texas. But I think even then. So if you're a Tennessee fan, you're fine. But I mean, the defense is really keeping you guys alive.
Yep. And I guess in just thinking about this segment, right? Like, where should Tennessee's focus be after the OT win? We've spoken a lot on the offense. The defense doesn't really require a lot of focus. This is a class you're passing with flying colors. This defense is one of the best in the SEC. I mean, I have them at number one. In my power rankings, you had them at number two.
Yeah.
And this defense has played such a key role in keeping them in that Oklahoma game, keeping them in the Florida game, keeping them in, even the Arkansas game that they did lose. Like, the defense did a good amount. You should win a game where the other team only scores 21 points, right? And speaking in light of the Arkansas game, but offensively, it has to be the focus. And I think the tough part is you rose up Nico. It's tough to kind of be critical of the young guy. And I think this is the time to do it. He's young. You got Josh Heupel. He's a quarterback guy. He obviously played quarterback at Oklahoma. And so that's got to be the main focus. Dylan Sampson is obviously really impressive. So we talked about that, but I think the quarterback play, getting more passes that are a little bit more, intricate, further down the field, and just kind of cleaning up the turnovers will take this team from number 11 to potentially in that top 2-3 SEC team discussion.
Yeah.